We got bowl prep going on, and also our ticket renewal process. I want to just obviously thank our fans, our Hokie Nation. They do a fantastic job for us and supporting our kids. We appreciate everyone. We're looking forward to seeing everybody back in 2019. We will practice today. Take tomorrow off. We've got some community service activities we're going to participate in tomorrow, and then we'll practice on Friday and Saturday morning, and then cut the kids loose for a couple days, and they'll meet us at the bowl site on the 26th. So, again, plenty of work for us to get done here, both in terms of trying to improve, kind of sharpening our skill set, trying to maintain our level of sharpness and attention to detail, while also getting ready for a very talented Cincinnati team. So.
Raise your hand, get your microphone.
When did you guys determine that you're going to need to kind of focus heavily on the junior college defenders? Was that something that was just kind of based on needs of the current roster, or is that something you see kind of being something that you'll do kind of going forward to fill spots?
Well, I would say this: the couple junior college kids we signed, we vet through that process pretty heavily, and I don't know that we set out to sign a particular position. We're trying to look for the right type of guys that would fit in us. Obviously, our defensive line depth, particularly defensive tackle, was an issue. We felt like we needed to certainly do a good job combing through those potential prospects. But everywhere else, we're just kind of looking to see if there's anybody that really fit, that fit us culturally, and was had some interest to the region. So it just kind of worked out that way.
You got 19 today. Sounds like you're waiting on one. I know you can't talk about. Are you expecting possibly anybody else before on February 6th?
I don't know if we'll sign anybody else or not, quite honestly. I feel pretty good about where we're at, and we'll just kind of evaluate it and move forward.
Historically, Virginia Tech has not signed a ton of junior college guys. The makeup of your staff geographically is kind of from those regions where those schools are, and I know she best coached at one point. Is sort of the makeup of how your staff is constructed conducive to scouting those kind of places, or does that lend anything to it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think 3 is a lot. It's maybe more than they've done in the past, but I certainly don't. I don't think it's going to become an over, this huge movement of us doing that. I think occasionally we'll get in there and look around and see if there's anybody that really fits, and see if it's a good fit. So I don't think it's a byproduct of anything other than, there's a couple needs we felt like we might not ought to search around a little bit and see if there's somebody that fits. So I don't think it's going to become anything other than that.
What are your expectations for Keyshawn King, and what do you think the additions of King and Gary do you see that shaking up the running back room a little bit? Do you hope that happens kind of sooner with those two than later?
Well, the first thing I would say is Taj Gary has got to get healthy. He's suffered a pretty big injury, and he's done a great job attacking his rehab and has a really good attitude about it. I don't come in with expectations for any of these guys. Like the conversation we had on our official visit weekend was not, a conversation centered around you're going to walk in here and play. I'm talking about with all of them. It was centered around on Wednesday you're going to sign, and what are you going to do next? Are you going to sit around for the next 3 weeks and pat yourself on the back and talk about how you signed at Virginia Tech, or are you going to roll your sleeves up and realize this is just the start of a tremendous amount of work and preparation? So we'll see how it goes. Like, they're all freshmen, and they don't know what they don't know right now. And I love every one of them, just like the kids we have right now. But there's a big leap from where they're at to where they need to be. But I am also very excited to get a chance to be their coach.
Got to ask about our local kid, Jesse Hansen out of Lord Botetourt. What does he bring to that offensive line?
I'm just so excited about Jess and his family, all Clemson graduates, and it was a big deal, a really big deal, for him to decide to stay, what is now his home in Virginia, and a very intelligent young man, great family, hard worker. I think kind of fits the mold of what we're looking for in that room in terms of mentality and accountability and intelligence and toughness, and excited to have him here.
Brian Hudson's going to want to do both, obviously football and track. What are those discussions like? How does that work? And have you had kind of a high-level player do both before? And how do you envision that kind of unfolding?
Well, each situation's different. Cole's doing both right now, and that's Cole's situation is very different from Brian's. But we do have some history here, long history of that, and there's obviously different secondary sports from baseball, basketball, track. It's different from a guy that's a thrower versus a guy that's a sprinter. And then there's also a difference between a guy that just goes over there to try and earn a few points and a guy that really is elite, and Brian is elite. So, that springtime, the good news is for a thrower, the lifting and the training is all the same and conducive. He can be with us during that time, but during the spring he will spend a little time over there working technique and getting ready to compete in those events. So, we've had a lot of discussions. Track and field is important in that family. He's got two sisters that are involved in it, as well as mothers involved in it. And as he gets here and gets through the first semester, we'll sit down and really hash out exactly what it's going to look like. But I think both programs are excited to have him be a part of it, and I would anticipate that he'll be able to fulfill both those needs fairly easily.
Seems like you guys have been trying to play catch up on the wide receiver numbers ever since you got here. You signed 4 in this class. How do you feel about that group? And it seems like a lot of sort of 6'1", 200-pound guys in a similar mold.
Sure, I am. I'm pleased with that group. I'm excited for them to get here and get to work. We've got to continue to create some competition in that room, and I think these guys are going to do that. And I think Coach Wiggins deserves a tremendous amount of credit for the job that he's done in that room. There just weren't a lot of numbers in there, or haven't been since we've been here, and we're now getting those numbers back up with competent guys that have a chance to get in there and really push each other to be productive and be the best that we can be. So they're all different. Some of them, 2 of them played quarterback this year. Jaden and Tavion both played quarterback essentially the entire year, whereas Elijah and Jacoby have been training at wide receiver. So it'll be interesting to see how that process goes, but I'm excited about the athleticism of all 4 of them.
Coach, can you talk about Amari Barno a little bit? He's intriguing because he's so tall and rangy.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you get involved with him? And do you have a feel at this point for whether he's going to wind up with his hand on the ground or be a linebacker for you?
Yeah, I don't know where he'll end up. We have some insight into his background. Obviously, he's from this part of the country. Played out in Kansas. Know some people that really feel like he's got a huge upside. He's like you said, he's got a great frame. I don't know what it's going to look like or where he's going to go. We've asked him to trust us through this process and our reputation of developing players, and both in the weight room and as actual football players, and ultimately we'll do what's best for him and best for Virginia Tech as his career unfolds.
I know it might not impact your approach, but when you see a team that kind of change it, like Penn State didn't have much success in Virginia kind of before you were here, before Coach Franklin, and now the last couple of years they've really emphasized this state. Do you pay attention to trend? I mean, how much do you kind of look at that? I mean, even though it might not impact your approach, how much do you kind of pay attention to those things and a team changing and investing more into a state like Penn State has done recently?
Well, we don't put too much stock into what other people do. We're pretty concerned about how we do things. I'm pretty excited about the kids from our state that decided to stay home. I think they're a really talented group of guys that that want to be here for the right reasons. So we try and do things the way that we want to do them, and focus on the things that are important to us. And the good news is we have a great product to sell.
Just how exciting is today? You finally get here. These kids sign the line. They're coming to be a part of this program, and you know how excited they are. What does it mean to you just to have these kids coming in?
Well, I'm thrilled that every one of these families trusts us and trusts our program. I understand that their parents or guardians are essentially handing off their most prized possession into our responsibility, and I'm honored to be charged with that. I think these kids decided to come to Virginia Tech for all the right reasons, to be a part of a great academic and athletic environment. And I'm looking forward to watching them grow and develop through the year. Everybody will talk about who's going to play immediately. Part of my messages, I've had NFL players at every position, and NFL GMs and NFL scouts, and not one of them has ever asked me, what did he do as a freshman? That's not what they care about. And these kids coming in and rolling their sleeves up and getting ready to work hard and develop into the best people, the best students and the best athletes that they can be is our primary mission. So I'm excited to get them here. We've been developing these relationships with these kids for a long time. I mean, we know maybe not everything about them, but we know a lot about them, and we've been with them for a long time. So to finally have them sign and make it become official and let me get to talk about them, and really focus on the next step, I think is a fun part of the job.
Couple more, Norm.
Brian, is it Brian or Breon Murray? Is it
Breon.
Breon. He was a guy that I think surprised some of us anyway today. When did he sort of come on your guys' radar? What was it about him that kind of stood out?
I don't know. It's been a month ago or so. I'm not sure the date, but a kid that we've been tracking for a long time, really took our time with, quite honestly, to continue to find out more and more about him. He came down on his official visit, and a bunch of people from his past came up and spent the day looking around Virginia Tech, which I thought was pretty cool. Said a lot about the kid. He's from Delaware, was in Kansas, and when he came down, there's just teachers and coaches and all sorts of people that wanted to come down and just see, where he may be possibly going to school and kind of support him, which I thought was pretty neat. Spoke volumes about his character and what people think about him. So it's a guy that we really, quite honestly, took our time with evaluating and trying to figure out if he was a guy that really fit us, and he certainly checked all the boxes.
Coach Burden talked to a lot of commits that had him as their primary recruiter, and they spoke differently about him than some of the other guys that spoke about their recruiter. Just really resonated and really, connected with a lot of the guys. What has made him sort of a good recruiter, and how have you kind of seen him, connect with a lot of these young athletes?
Well, again, Zahn does a very good job for us, and he has a passion for recruiting. Recruiting has become position oriented. I mean, yes, certainly Will Pritchard is in Zahn's area, but pretty quickly the position coach becomes a primary recruiter, and the area coach becomes kind of the supplementary recruiter. We hand them off pretty quickly, but all that being said, Coach Burden has done a great job servicing both his area and being a great supplemental recruiter when it's handed off to the other position coach, and a great job, with his own position. I don't know what it is about it. I think he has a passion for it. He enjoys doing it. He certainly is a laid-back mentality. I mean, he's very calm and collected with the kids. But he also, I think, has a unique ability to connect with kids from different backgrounds, and kind of ability to get them to talk and them to feel comfortable with him.
Anybody else for Coach? One more?
You shared some of your thoughts on the early signing day last month, I think it was. Is it weird now to be done sort of with this class, and how have kind of, any of those thoughts changed? So what do you think about sort of how this is developed, and now this is really signing day?
This is signing day.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
sort of, weird to have it named that, but I mean, what do you kind of think about this?
Driving into work today, thinking about this being signing day, it was really odd because it used to be, as a coach, like on signing day, you just gotten off the road from another month of January, and you were going to work till about noon and go have a good time, and that's over. You have signing day, and then you get ready for practice and you go. So it's just weird. I think taking knocking a leg off of the drama is a good thing, quite honestly. I do like that part of it. I'm sure that I'm not sure that as this goes on and on that it won't become a little kind of back to being a little bit of a circus, like it became in February. I'm really, again, I told you all this many times, but I'm really looking forward to my Christmas break now. Because, this thing's pretty much wrapped up. I think it's important that we continue to evaluate the benefits for the kids. I really do. I don't know the answer. Some may like it, some may not. It seems like it's becoming more normal, and we may never go back. But I think it's important that we continue to try to give these kids the best opportunity to make a good decision. To be able to get somewhere that they're choosing for the right reasons, that they're passionate about, that they feel confident in. You read all the horror stories about recruiting, and there are plenty, but there's so many things that happen in recruiting that don't get talked about, we get to eat dinner with so many great families across the country. I mean, it really makes you feel better about the direction of this country when you sit down with these families that have worked hard to instill values in these kids, and obviously some of them come from more than others, and different backgrounds and all that sort of stuff, and different obstacles. But that's the fun part for us. And I know I'm getting off your question, but I just I really enjoy that part of it. I think our staff does too, and I think the kids that can handle recruiting the right way get a chance to enjoy it and make a good decision and make a smooth transition. And trying to continue to help those kids handle the process of recruiting to make a good decision so that they can have a smooth transition and ultimately a happy career in life, I think is what our focus needs to be on.
All right. Thank
Good.
you, Coach.
You bet.
Coordinators coming up.
kind of focus a little bit the last month on bringing in some junior college defenders. When was that? Did you guys want that experience? Is that something that you guys kind of settled on the last kind of month, or how did that kind of develop?
No, that's something we've talked about for probably since the summer, and particularly at our defensive tackle spot. And then, with our situation in the back end, just being so young back there and inexperienced with the Murray kid. But really, more than anything was just trying to bring some maturity in here, particularly at a couple spots. And this is a tough school to transfer into, and finding guys that are obviously good quality student athletes was critical for us, and I think we did that.
Raise your hand, we'll get you a microphone. Questions for Coach Foster?
Guess we're done. That was quick and easy, painless.
Of those junior college guys, Barno seems like an interesting prospect there at 6'6", 225. What position do you envision him at in the future?
He's a guy that can potentially play linebacker. He played linebacker at Butler Community College, but he has the frame. There are some similarities to Tremaine Edmonds there a little bit. He's long, he's athletic, he's explosive. He has a great frame. But he has that potential to play a couple different spots for us, and an intriguing guy, and excited about his potential.
Can you tell us about Deshaun Crawford? He kind of seems like a prototypical fit at defensive tackle for Tech.
Yeah, I mean, that was a priority for us, really, more than any of these spots is defensive tackle. And I'm not saying we're done yet with that, yeah, I mean, he's going to come in. He's a high motor guy. He's very twitchy and athletic inside. He's not the biggest guy that we looked at, but probably the most productive and most active of those guys. And he's going to come in probably a lot in the line of Jared Hewitt, in my opinion, to get another guy in here that active, and then already having a couple years under his belt with the maturity that we need. Because you take Jared out of the picture, then we're going to be really, really young, with after that. And so having another guy in here with some maturity, a motor with some work ethic and that type of thing, I think is really important for us.
Questions for Coach Foster?
How long, when you're at defensive tackle, how long does it take? When does it set you back when you kind of experience unexpected kind of departures, or you have to kind of really kind of regain your depth? How long of a process is that? Can it be quick, or does it take some time?
That's a good question. Historically, it's probably taken some time. I know you need numbers in there, because that's a spot that can get banged up pretty easily or quickly. I wouldn't say easily, but can get that spot can get depleted by some injuries. Having the experience in there is one that you really prefer, but we've gotten away playing with some young guys in the past and who have played really well for us, and obviously we're hoping that we can get some help immediately. I think Deshaun can be a guy that can help us right away. It'll be interesting to see of the freshmen that come in. Right now, the Fuga kid would be, size-wise, would be the guy. Mario Hendricks would be another guy that potentially has the size that could come in if they can learn things and learn to play at a high level and be physical at the point of attack. That's always the challenge. You get an 18-year-old kid that, even though he might have size, all of a sudden he's going against a kid that's been in a weight program and a training table for about 3 or 4 years. There's a difference in their maturity level and physicality and that type of thing. But you're seeing more and more guys being able to play a little earlier just because of really good strength programs coming out of high school. And then hopefully these guys will be quick learners for us, and I think they will be. But we'll have to wait and see. But that's a good question, and I wish I could look in a crystal ball and those guys can see several of them help us right away. But I do like these kids. I do think they're Virginia Tech kind of kids for us. I mean, are they the 6'4" guys? No, but we've had a lot of success with those 6'2", 6 foot, 6'1" guys that are low center of gravity, that are twitchy and good athletes, and that's what I think we have in this group coming in. But I'd like, just like we were this year, I'd like for those guys to, somebody help us sooner than later. But that's also kind of why we're targeting some JC kids too, just to get some immediate impact with some maturity and that type of thing as well.
J.R. Walker, I think, was a surprise to a lot of people when he committed here. I think a lot of people have him pegged for NC State. And he didn't even have Tech in his top 3 or so, publicly anyway. Did you guys have a little better feel that behind the scenes he was maybe leaning towards you guys?
Yeah, I don't know if he was leaning. We had a better feel about him leaning towards us. I know this. We put a lot of time and effort into JR. Initially, Charlie Wiles had that area, and me recruiting being involved in all the defensive kids, I spent a lot of time in 757. And Northeastern High School was just kind of down the road over there. And I spent a lot of time myself with JR and, and really developed a great relationship with him. Obviously, he moved, and getting closer, I think closer to Blacksburg was a factor. I think he really liked Blacksburg and likes Virginia Tech, likes his teammates, obviously, which is a factor of him ultimately signing with us. But I do think he's close to his family, and I do think being closer to Blacksburg was hopefully a factor in that. Instead of being, about 6-7 hours away, being 3.5 hours away, I think it was helpful in his final decision. But I think is a really quality student athlete. I mean, he was the MVP here recently of the defensive MVP in the Shrine Bowl. Just a guy that I'm anxious to see. Is he going to be free? Is he going to be a nickel? Is he going to be a rover type guy for us? That's kind of where I'm anxious to see where he will fit in one of those 3 spots. I'd prefer him to be in more that rover, or that free to nickel spot than I would be more to the rover, because that gives us a mindset that the guy's got really good speed and coverage capabilities and all those type of things, which I think he has that. But until you see him for live, I'm taking against good people. I think you watch him on high school film, you can see that. But watch him against good people at this level, we got to determine is that where his best fit for us. But dynamic athlete, dynamic football player, but we put a lot of time in him. And I remember the first time I talked to him, I said, just be honest, who's your school of choice? And he told me it was the one with the paw on their helmet, you know what I mean? But he came to a game here, him and his teammate, and at that time, I think that's when he saw the atmosphere that we have here, the potential we have here, what we've done. He got an idea of the tradition and the history here, and I think all those were factors ultimately in his decision to come to Virginia Tech.
Kind of along those lines, how much of an open mind do you have for positions on some of these guys? That somebody like Dean Ferguson, who maybe is the size of a safety or a whip right now, but could grow once he gets here. How much do you kind of have an open mind for what you think they are now versus what they could
Well,
be
yeah, I mean, Dean's a guy that obviously we've got him pegged to be a backer for us. I mean, he's in that, he's listed at 6'2". I think he's a little bit taller than that. Every time I see him, he's put on weight. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be in that 240-pound range, and he's got a big body, but he's extremely athletic. And he's played a little bit of both. He's played what they called a rover back at his high school, or a monster back kind of position. He was almost behind the linebackers. It was kind of he was almost like that. Like I said, he's a rover, just kind of being able to run the alley and do some different things, like a inverted safety almost. But we've been following him for the last couple we've watched him work out quite a bit, myself and Brian Mitchell, And I think he's going to be along those lines. We need a more athletic guy at our backer spot. Just a guy that, as you saw, what we've done over the years, that's been kind of a playmaking position for us. But it's been guys that have some really good speed. Those guys can become erasers. They can play well in space. We can do a lot of different things with those guys. And I think Dean will be a guy that can do those things when it's all said and done. But I do like his athleticism. I do like his size potential. But I think he's a guy that can do a variety of things for us when it's all said and done. I'm not for sure it's a safety type position, but you like to recruit those big safeties to be linebacker type guys as well, just because of the athleticism, the ability to make plays in space.
Couple more. Sam.
And you've been recruiting these guys, building these relationships for years now. What is it like to finally get to talk about them and know that they're going to be here in the fall?
Yeah, it's pretty cool because, as you said, leading up to it, all we can say is, yes, we're recruiting this young man, and yeah, it's nice to be able to talk about him because you look at what we've done under Coach Fuente's leadership so far. His first recruiting class was really the majority of it was hanging on to Coach Beamer's class and that type of thing. So really, this is his second full class, that we've had here, and I really like the athletes that we were putting together. It's kind of a transition now. As you can see, there's a lot of young players. The older guys are filtering through, and but it's exciting to be able to talk about these guys and talk about how excited we are about them because it's a good group of young men that I think carrying on this tradition is extremely important to them. Obviously, they got to come in and learn some things, and they see the expectations maybe from outside, but do they know exactly what it takes to meet those expectations? And that's kind of what you're finding a little bit with this group this year. But you will have some leaders out of this group next year or this year to lead for next year's class, and that's part of the process too. But yeah, it's cool to be able to talk about these guys, and I've had a chance to see all of them in person, and obviously they were just here. Most of them were here just this weekend, but had a chance to see about all of them at their school or at home and that type of thing. And we've got like I said, a really good group of kids and good families and really self-motivated guys, which I'm really excited about.
Last one.
I asked Coach Fuente this, and I'm curious. You've been through a lot of national signing days now with the early signing day, which has basically become National Signing Day. What are your thoughts about how this kind of shifted and the impact of it and how you kind of perceive it?
It's interesting. Obviously, recruiting's earlier. It does when you have this early signing period. It tells you who all's in. And we didn't have any surprises today. Last year I think we had a surprise or two maybe. I can't remember, but I know we had a surprise. But we were talking about it. It used to be, the old signing period when it was in February. You weren't in spring, you weren't in fall or bowl practice and that type of thing. So you might go as a staff go celebrate a little bit. Hey, we put a lot of time and effort into these guys, and let's go celebrate and rejoice this recruiting class. Right now we're just going back to work. We got a meeting here at 1:10, so and get ready to go on the practice field. But I don't know. I could go a couple different ways with my personal philosophy about the early signing periods and things of that nature. But it's exciting. But I think with teams that are preparing for a bowl game or different things like that, maybe you don't see the hype that it used to be, where you saw people in the war room, so to speak, and hanging in there and high-fiving everybody when every phone call comes in. We were in staff meeting and playing in practice and that type of thing, and putting the guys' names up on the board and that type of deal, and we just don't quite have that hoopla that maybe there have been in the past. But that doesn't mean it's any less significant. That's for sure, because these guys we're real excited about and excited about them being part of our family and the Hokie family. I think the Hokie Nation in the end will be really excited that these guys played at Virginia Tech.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you all. If I don't see you, Merry Christmas. I know we'll see you at the ball game, but Merry Christmas to you all.
think I remember one of the first things you told us was that you prefer to have 12 or 13 receivers on the roster at any given time. I think I would figure based on what you got in this class, you got to be pretty happy with the depth that you've added there. And Coach Fuente was talking about how the athleticism of that group of 4 receivers particularly stands out.
Yeah, we're getting the numbers where we need them. Excited about not just the numbers, but the quality of the guys coming in, the talent, the type of guys they are. There's some guys that are developed, that hopefully can come in and pick it up right away and give us a chance to have some competition at that spot.
What do you see in Keyshawn King that he brings to the table the most?
His explosiveness. He's a talented kid. I really liked his when I watched him run his highlight film. He's got really nice body lean. There's something about those guys that carry the ball that have the ability to really carry themselves low, carry their pads low as they're running without losing their balance. And that's one of the first things that stuck out to me, on top of just his talent, his speed, quickness. And then once you meet the kid and you're around him a little bit, and really a kid that you can get excited about to get on the team.
Specifically about Tavion Robinson, obviously one of the I guess jewels of your class. He's not the world's biggest dude, but I guess is his sort of biggest asset his speed. I mean, he's also probably got I would assume he's got a higher aptitude than a lot of kids. Haven't played the quarterback spot, and there's some of his
yeah,
yeah.
It's nice to see kids play quarterback. It's happened a lot in the past here, I know, and he's one. Payut's another guy that played a lot of quarterback. It just makes you feel good that their coaches trusted them to play that position, to touch the ball, make the calls, whatever it is. So you like to see that. But yeah, he's fast. He's talented. He could play. He could really play any spot at receiver. So hoping he's a guy that can come in and be return punts and kicks for you and get into that mix. But just a neat kid, smart, tough, talented. Just the whole works.
Jesse Hansen out of Lord Botetourt's been committed for a while, but what does he bring to this O-line, and what did you guys see out of him so early?
Well, he's a big developed kid, and he's all offensive lineman. He loves it. He loves the weight room. He loves the trenches, the toughness that comes along with playing that position. So, he's a kid that, his parents were longtime Clemson fans, and he almost didn't even come over here and check it out because of that. And as soon as he got over here, he realized it was the perfect spot for him, and we've loved him from the beginning, and he's done a great job helping us recruit this class. He's always over here, and him and his family. So just excited about that room, the young guys we have, and those guys coming in. Him being one of them, that they just bring the right kind of attitude and toughness that we're looking for that room.
You got 2 wide receivers in this class who were full-time receivers in high school and a couple that were quarterbacks in high school. What's the learning curve for those guys who don't have as much experience at the wide receiver position once they get to college?
Oh, those guys, they had to play quarterback for their high school this last year because they were probably the best guy for the job. But I think it helps them, knowing the quarterback position helps those guys at receiver. If you know what to do at quarterback, that other spot's easy. So I don't expect that to be an adjustment. We're not signing quarterbacks that we are moving to receiver. Those guys are receivers. They worked out. They came to camp as receivers, and we've evaluated them as receivers. So I don't expect it to be an adjustment from that standpoint.
Brian Hudson is kind of an elite athlete in 2 sports. What are your kind of impressions of him and what he brings? And just, he's going to be doing both. So have you had kind of a high-level player kind of do both before? And kind of what are your expectations for him?
Yeah, it's tough to do. He's a special kid. I think he's the type of kid that can do that. I know football is kind of going to be first and foremost for him, and that's what he's excited about. But yeah, he's a that was one of the things that helped us get him here. Was he was attracted to both of those sports here at Virginia Tech and knew he could do both, and we're going to support him all the way. And but he's got it all. He's got the length and the intelligence, and again, another guy that just brings some toughness and grit into that position.
Taj Gary is a guy who's built kind of like Stephen Peoples. Is he a similar kind of player to that? And second, how do you deal with recruiting somebody who, after they commit like that, suffers such a serious injury like he did at the end of his senior year?
Yeah, it's easy. You know, we let those kids know that we got them. You know, we're not bringing them in only if they're healthy. You know, once we made the commitment to them and they made the commitment to us, then we're here for them. And you know, sometimes it takes those kids longer to recover than others, but he's doing well. And yeah, he's a compact, explosive guy like Peoples, and that's what we like about him. A thick lower body, really good strength, but has the quickness and lateral movement, explosiveness to go along with it.
Anybody else for Coach Corn? All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Coach.
guys.